Hi, let's talk about habits today. A lot of times when you're practicing, you have to identify a specific habit that you have and work to break it. This can be a new fingering, it can be a new posture, a new way of holding your instrument, anything really. But what you really have to remember is that conscious repetition is the key to learning any kind of new habit. And more important than the repetition is the conscious part of that statement. If you're repeating things automatically without really thinking about it, then you're not going to be breaking that habit. So if you're playing stuff over and over and over again and you're not seeing results, that's probably why. Today I am trying to develop a new breathing habit for myself. I've had a lot of neck pain and shoulder pain for a long time, and I think I figured out what's wrong. I think that when I inhale, I tense my neck muscles a lot, which causes my top rib to raise. These muscles here are actually like secondary breathing muscles. They do help you to inhale, especially if you're inhaling fast. And I seem to have developed a habit of making them too tight. So my body is kind of fighting against itself. And unfortunately, I have to retrain myself how to breathe. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but it's really hard. So what I'm doing when I go about this is I have to be really, really conscious of every single breath that I take. Even when I'm not playing, I am actively thinking about trying to do this, but the most work goes when I am practicing. So I'm just playing through a mill day exercise, and you may be surprised how often I stop and reset myself. It's going to be literally every breath, because otherwise I'm not going to break the habit. And right now I have a physical cue that is helping me to make that change. I discovered that if I place my hands on my neck here, I can kind of consciously relax those muscles. And when I make a deep inhale, I get more rib expansion in my lower ribs, and I feel like the air is going to the same place, but without any of the fighting that I had in my upper chest. I feel like I was constricting here instead of expanding, because sometimes I feel like a lot of my students do this as well. If we're trying to get our breath lower in our body, we're actually tightening up here to fight that urge to expand, because we feel like deep breath can't include the upper chest, but it can. Your lungs inhabit the entire thoracic cavity where your ribs live. So don't feel like you need to be closed off in any way. And the more free you feel, the better you're going to sound. In fact, I will demonstrate just one or two measures with the previous way I was breathing, and I think that you'll hear a difference when I change. And now when I take my new in-breath, I'm going to make sure that I am really aware of this area of my body. And then I'm going to start. Error aside, it may not come across on the microphone there, but in real life, I hear a lot more resonance with that sound, and that serves to demonstrate that any kind of tension that we have in the upper part of our body really messes with the way that we sound. So if you're struggling to get a more resonant tone, think about the sort of resistance that you might have in your upper chest and your neck area. It's probably more than you think, because I felt for a long time that my neck was pretty relaxed, and it turns out that it's not. Little anatomy lesson. There's one muscle that runs from your hyoid bone, which is here, like, right, it's the only bone in your body that's not attached to the rest of your skeleton, and it helps to keep your larynx shape, and it helps you to swallow and things like that. But there's a muscle that runs from here all the way down your neck, around the back of your shoulder and to the top of your shoulder blade, and that has hurt me for a long time, and I only discovered that it existed yesterday. It's called the omohyoid, and it can get really tight in a lot of people, especially like if you are using your neck to support, which a lot of people do. I do that to a little bit of an extent, but definitely not as much as my students may. So yeah, something to think about if you're trying to improve your sound. Think about the ways that you might be fighting against yourself, because our bodies are more important sometimes than the instrument or the reed even. So when I go through this, literally every time that I need to breathe, I am stopping and doing this and being really aware of what's happening. Because if I'm not aware, then I'm just going to revert to my old habit. You'll see that it does take a long time to start this habit. I've only been doing this for 2 days. I think that over the next week, it will become much more ingrained in me, and I probably won't need this physical cue anymore. But if you can find some way to remind yourself of what you're doing, especially a lot of people, especially if you're newer to taking lessons on the bassoon, you might be trying to change some fingerings. If you are trying to incorporate your left thumb into your bassoon life a little more, a lot of people come to lessons not having ever used any flick keys. I think it's better to actually stop before you get to a note that uses a flick key and deliberately move to it, rather than just try to go through and maybe hit it, because it's that deliberate choice that is going to rewrite the pathways in your mind. So good luck, and if you've got any other habits that you're changing, let me know in the comments and we can talk about them.